What is your inner voice? The concept of the inner voice has long fascinated philosophers, psychologists, writers, and spiritual seekers alike. It is a deeply intimate part of the human experience, and yet it is often misunderstood or overlooked. The inner voice is not merely the sound of our thoughts or the silent monologue that accompanies our daily lives. It is a complex, layered phenomenon that reflects the deepest parts of our identity. It is the quiet compass that orients us in the chaotic ocean of external stimuli. To explore the inner voice is to explore the architecture of the self, and in doing so, we may find clarity, conflict, truth, or contradiction. At its most basic level, the inner voice is the internal narrator that frames our understanding of the world. From the moment we wake up, our inner voice is active. It helps us plan, evaluate, criticize, and imagine. It is the voice that says, "You can do this," or "Be careful," or "What if things go wrong?" This voice can be kind or cruel, encouraging or defeating. For some, it serves as a motivator. For others, it is a relentless critic. It can help us reason through difficult decisions, anticipate outcomes, and reflect on past experiences. But where does this voice come from? And why does it vary so wildly between individuals? Psychologically, the inner voice is tied to our conscious thought processes, particularly verbal thinking. Theorists such as Lev Vygotsky argued that inner speech develops through the internalization of external speech. Essentially, that the way we are spoken to as children becomes the way we eventually speak to ourselves. This explains why the tone and content of our inner voice often reflect our upbringing. A child raised with constant encouragement may develop a supportive inner voice, while one raised with criticism may internalize that same harshness. The inner voice, then, is a kind of echo chamber of our formative interactions, a private reflection of public encounters. But the inner voice is more than just a psychological function. It is deeply entwined with identity. It reflects not only how we think, but who we believe we are. In this way, it acts as a narrative structure, shaping the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. This self-narrative can be empowering or limiting. Consider the difference between an inner voice that says, "I always mess things up," and one that says, "I'm resilient and can learn from this." Each voice constructs a different self-image, a different way of moving through the world. The stories we tell ourselves through our inner voice can dictate not only our self-esteem, but also our actions, our ambitions, and our relationships. Creatively, the inner voice is the wellspring of imagination. Writers, artists, and musicians often describe a kind of dialogue they have with themselves, a voice that guides their intuition, suggests ideas, and critiques their work. In this sense, the inner voice can be both muse and mentor. It is the source of internal feedback, the silent partner in the creative process. It questions, "What if you tried it this way?" Or insists, "That's not good enough." Creativity is often about learning to listen to this voice without being dominated by it. Many creative blocks stem from a dysfunctional inner voice, one that overwhelms with doubt or perfectionism. Conversely, breakthroughs often come when we learn to trust that subtle whisper of inspiration. There is also a moral dimension to the inner voice. It is often the seat of conscience, the voice that tells us when something is wrong, even when no one else is watching. This voice can be shaped by religious belief, cultural values, personal experience, or innate empathy. It is what causes us to feel guilt or pride, shame or integrity. It is not infallible. People can have distorted or harmful inner voices just as they can have misguided beliefs, but it is usually sincere. When we talk about listening to our conscience, we are often talking about tuning into that inner moral compass. However, the inner voice is not always a singular or unified entity. Many people experience it as a multiplicity of voices, conflicting urges, thoughts, and perspectives. One part of the mind says, "Take the risk," while another urges caution. In therapeutic terms, these voices may represent different parts of the self, such as the inner child, the inner critic, or the inner nurturer. Approaches like internal family systems therapy treat these voices not as symptoms of pathology, but as natural aspects of the human psyche, each with its own needs and wisdom. In this framework, mental health involves learning to hear these voices with compassion and to integrate them harmoniously. For others, the inner voice is not verbal at all. People with aphantasia, for instance, may not experience mental imagery or a strong inner narrative. Others may think in feelings, sensations, or pictures rather than words. This raises intriguing questions about the diversity of inner experiences. Just as language shapes the way we perceive the world, the nature of our inner voice, or its absence, shapes the texture of our consciousness. Understanding this diversity is crucial in education, therapy, and interpersonal relationships. Not everyone reasons or reflects in the same way, and honoring these differences can lead to greater empathy and insight. Technology has also begun to alter our relationship with the inner voice. In an age of constant connectivity and external input, moments of silence are increasingly rare. Notifications, podcasts, social media, and smart devices all compete for our attention, often drowning out the inner monologue. This creates a paradox. Never before have we had so many ways to express ourselves externally, yet many feel more disconnected from their internal selves than ever. Practices like mindfulness, journaling, and solitude are increasingly important as tools for reclaiming inner space. They allow us to pause and re-engage with that quiet but essential voice inside us. The inner voice also plays a critical role in resilience and mental health. People who suffer from anxiety, depression, or trauma often report an inner voice that is judgmental, hopeless, or abusive. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, among other approaches, focuses on identifying and challenging these dysfunctional thought patterns. By becoming aware of the inner voice and its distortions, individuals can begin to reframe their self-talk and cultivate a more supportive internal dialogue. This is not easy. It requires time, reflection, and often professional guidance, but it can be transformative. Changing your inner voice can change your life. There is also a spiritual dimension to the inner voice. Many religious and mystical traditions speak of an inner guide, divine whisper, or still small voice that speaks truth beyond ego or intellect. In Christianity, the voice of God is often said to be found not in thunder or fire, but in quietness. In Buddhism, inner silence is the path to awakening. In indigenous traditions, the inner voice may be a connection to ancestors or the land. While the interpretation varies, the common thread is this. Within us is a voice that knows, that transcends the noise of the world. Learning to hear it is seen not only as a psychological task, but as a sacred one. Yet despite its importance, the inner voice is often neglected in modern discourse. We are taught to focus on results, performance, and external validation. We are rarely encouraged to cultivate our internal world with the same vigor. Schools teach math and grammar, but not how to listen to ourselves. Workplaces value output, not introspection. Even relationships sometimes prioritize communication over inner attunement. And yet, all of these domains suffer when we lose touch with our inner voice. We burn out, become alienated, or act in ways that betray our deeper values. Reconnecting with the inner voice is not a luxury. It is a necessity for authenticity and well-being. There are many ways to develop a healthier relationship with your inner voice. One of the most powerful is writing. When we write without censoring ourselves, whether in journals, letters, or creative works, we give form to our inner dialogue. We see patterns, contradictions, and revelations that were previously buried. Over time, writing can help clarify the voice within and transform it from a murmur into a melody. Similarly, meditation and contemplative practices create a space where the inner voice can emerge more clearly. By learning to sit with silence, we allow the subtle rhythms of thought and feeling to surface. Therapy, too, can be a profound tool for this work, providing both guidance and a mirror. But perhaps the most important practice is listening. We must learn to listen to ourselves with the same curiosity and compassion we might offer a friend. This means suspending judgment, allowing complexity, and accepting that the inner voice may not always make sense at first. It may speak in metaphors, memories, or half-formed impressions. It may bring up pain as well as insight, but it is always worth hearing. Over time, this act of listening becomes a form of self-respect. It affirms that your inner life matters, that your thoughts, feelings, and intuitions deserve attention. In the end, the inner voice is not just a psychological phenomenon. It is a sacred inheritance of consciousness. It is a place where thought meets emotion, where memory meets imagination, where the past converses with the future. It is the most personal thing we have, and yet it connects us to something universal. Every human being has an inner voice, and every inner voice carries wisdom, longing, and truth. To ask what is your inner voice is to ask who are you beneath the noise, and what do you know when you are still? That's it for now. Please let us know in the comments what you learned from this video. Thanks for your time. See you later.